Hello and welcome to Creative You Art Lesson Crates. My name is Karen and I'm going to be your instructor for today. You might notice in your box you got this interesting little pack. These are sold in art supply stores and it's a wonderful practice. It is an additional lesson that I included in your package. It is not one of the masters, but I did want to include this mainly because it is a really good way of explaining shading to my students. So it's just a little added bonus for you. So let's go ahead and open up our package and we'll go over what we have inside. You're not really going to need the instructions on the back, so if you end up ripping it, it's no big deal. I'm going to go over everything with you. Now if you pull out your sheet, you're going to notice you have a piece of paper, and if you look closely, there's a drawing on it of giraffes. It's very, very subtle. Now this paper here is very interesting. It's got a lot of the information that you're going to need, but I'm going to go over this with you. So if you, excuse me, if you want to hang on to it just for a reference, that's great, but you're not going to need it right now. I'm going to go with it. You also have a backing. This is very cool because your table space may appear smooth and glossy, but it actually has some imperfections. And when you're working with many art supplies, you'll find that much like when you were in kindergarten and did crayon etchings, you know, where you took your paper and you rubbed your crayon and you would get the texture of whatever you were rubbing, or the leaf or the ground. The same thing can happen to your fine art. So you always want to try and put something underneath that's nice and smooth and flat to help from getting any kind of dimples or imperfections or even holes. If you end up with a part of your table that might have a little tiny little hole, your pencil might get stuck in that and then you got a hole in your paper. Now these are the supplies that come with this kit. If you've been with me for a while, you'll recognize them. They are lettered and numbered pencils. There's a white eraser. Now the white eraser is important when you're working on white paper. You don't necessarily want to use a white eraser on dark paper. You can, but you might get kind of a ghostly shadow wherever you erase. So I recommend a gray eraser for when you do that. It is covered in plastic, so we'll get that off in a minute. Obviously, the much needed pencil sharpener that I find I can never find when I need one. So every time I get these kits, I always get new pencil sharpeners and I hide them all over the house. That way I know I'm going to find one somewhere. There's one in my junk drawer, there's one in my makeup drawer. You know, they're all over the place. So the question is, why do you have so many pencils to do one job? Well, pencils are not a universal color. The higher the number H, the harder the lead, which is this. Now, the harder the lead, the lighter the color. That means not as much of the lead is coming off onto your paper. So if you want a shadowed area that is very subtle, you might use an H, a 3H even, or, oh, that's all they have in here. So I would recommend the 3H. That would be the highest number of H's that we have. Now, the opposite is your B's, or are your B's. B's are black. They have a softer lead, therefore more comes out when you use it. So here we have a 2B, a 5B, and a 6B. So which one of these would you think is the darkest? 6B, obviously. All right, so they're wonderful too. I love to work with the B's. And honestly, if you can only get one pencil out of all of these, let's say you can only afford one pencil as an artist, and if you're a starving artist, that might be the case. But if you can only get one of these, I would recommend the 6B, because not only do you get the dark automatically because it's a dark pencil, but the pressure of your hand can determine if it's light. So this is the best one. This is the one that I like to use the most. I find that I go through my 6Bs and even 8Bs so fast. And I'll have like 30 H's and 3 H's and 8 H's because I use the pressure of my hand more than the pencil. But for today, we're going to use all of them. The last one I wanted to go over is HB. It has both. It's kind of like a 50-50. Therefore, it's the middle of the road. It is the same basic concept as the 0 on a number line. It's part H and part B. So this is really good if you're sketching. So let's say we wanted to draw in the outline of our giraffe. You could use this one. It's a nice neutral color. All right, so now we've gone over our supplies. I'm going to pause the video for just a moment so you can go ahead and pull yours out and take the paper off of your eraser, and we're going to get started. Welcome back. All right, if you know me, which many of you have been with me for a long time, I want to show you this little piece here. This is one of my favorite things to use. This is called a torchillon or a blending stick. I love these. This can give you such a wonderful gradation of grays from black to white without even trying. You look like a professional, even if it's one of your first drawings. So if you don't have a torchillon, you can always use your fingers. You have 10 blending sticks right here. Some of you may have 9 or less. What we're going to do is we're going to use our fingers, and if you want to use a torch, you can, to do all of our picture. But first, we want to practice. This is just a blank sheet of paper. It's not the one that's got our giraffes on it. I want to go over a few techniques. We're going to first start with water. How could we create water? I'm going to grab an H and I'm going to grab a B. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to grab a 3H and a 6B. And I want to practice. To make water, if this is your landscape, all right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you. This is your landscape. You want water to here. Well, you're not going to do water up and down. That gives it a grass-like feel. Water flows side to side. So you want all of your pencil lines to be subtle little waves side to side. Now I'm not talking about 8s. Don't do 8s. It's not an infinity. Just little smiles. Try and spread them out, overlap them all over. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Almost like curved X's. Fill it in as far as you would want your water to go. And then I'm going to switch to my B. I'm going to do a 6B. Sorry, you can't read upside down now, can you? At the top, the farthest away, we want dark. Now it would be the opposite if it were a sunrise or sunset, because the sun would be right here, so it would be light coming to dark. But for this example, we're going to start with the dark in the background and work our way to the light. Notice I'm doing the same pressure as the H, but since it is a lighter wood, or I'm sorry, a lighter lead, it is it's coming up dark anyway. I'm focusing more on the back, and as I come forward, I'm lifting the pressure so I can start getting a little bit of a blend between the two. I don't want a distinct line of dark water to light water. I want the dark to work its way to light. And that'll give the illusion of the water going back. Okay. Another thing you can do with your water is torch it. Hold it with your finger on top. So you're going to get kind of an angle. I don't want to use the very tip. You're going to dull it out, and it's, you know, you can't peel the paper off of it and make it sharp again. It's not like a China pencil, but you can use these over and over and over again, and eventually you will get one. Let's see if I can find one. You're going to get one that's going to look so beat up, but the cool thing is it is still functional, and it's got color in there. It's very mild, but you see that? You can use just the color on your torch to fill in spots. So don't think that since it's dirty, it's ruined. Okay, so I hold mine like this, and I want to come in and I want to just scribble it. I'm putting some pressure down, and I'm going to just small little dashes all the way, just keep rubbing it in, rubbing it in. I'm trying to kind of fill a lot of that white. And you notice also I'm working from the dark to the light. Usually I would say work light to dark, but in this case, I want that color to come into the light side. So I'm okay with going dark to light. So there you go. That would be your drawn water. You could add some erased in spots, gently tapping it to give the illusion of waves. You can polka dot it, and that gives it a little bit more of a subtle look. So if we were to zoom in on that, there you go, there's your water. Pretty cool, huh? All right, to do sky, you can take a very light pencil. Well, it depends on how the weather is, honestly, but let's say we want just a regular sky. I'm going to cross hatch. So I'm going to go one way, all the way, one way. Notice I'm not taking any breaks inside of my area. I want nice smooth lines. And then I'm going to turn my paper and I'm going to do the opposite, going all the way into my water. That's a crosshatch. All right. Now last time I used the torch, I'm going to use my finger here to show you that they do the same basic thing. I take my finger, and I'll rub it in. Honestly, your fingers are the best blending tool because you have natural oils on your fingers. And that helps it to blend. Once you have your sky done, you can take your eraser, find a fresh little point. Kind of, you know, I got a little bit of roughness there, a little color. So I'm going to find a clean point. And I'm going to use little tiny dots and bring in some clouds. Remember, clouds are not perfect. Don't try and do those elementary school poofs. This is not elementary school. You can even have one kind of going off the page. So, if this were my drawing, I would clean up my edges. And say that that little landscape is done. You could even be really fun and add to it. Like let's say I'm going to take a B, 5B. I'm going to do a little bit of land all the way at the bottom, nice and dark. I'm just freestyling right now, so bear with me. This is just to show you that a doodle can become art. Now, in order to do palm trees, it's a line in the middle and V's coming out, but you want them to overlap. So I do one side and one side. It's the same concept as a feather. Sorry, I've got pencils rolling everywhere. And you notice I'm turning my paper instead of stretching my hand across my drawing, because I don't want to smear any more than I have to. I like the look of a drawing with a drawing coming out of it. So what I typically do personally as an artist is have like part of the palm tree coming out, or if it's a child with a ball, the ball might be coming out of the scene, or something along those lines, just to give it something cool. So I would just come in here, and mainly in the center, I want to blur it up to really make it look like there's a lot of palm fronds, but then they get nice and thin out there. Down here I just did some cat tails and, you know, made it a little fun. You can add a whimsical little border. Sorry, probably making you dizzy. I'm looking down and not at the camera. And then, as always, every artist signs their art. So that's how you take a little tiny sketch and turn it into art. Kind of fun, huh? So that's how you would make water and sky. You saw how in the beginning I was showing you how to do the water. I said don't go up and down. Going up and down makes grass. Same basic concept though. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pull out our picture here. You can use the cover as your example, but you don't have to. You can do this however you want to. This is your picture. But what I do want to show you is how the further away something is, or underneath or behind, the darker it is. If it's close up, it's a little bit lighter. So what we're going to do is really zone in. Just throw yourself into this. Just start with a either the dark colors or the light colors, whichever you prefer to start with, and we're going to start filling in. So you ready to get started? All right, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video. You'll need to switch to the next video, and that will be the actual fill-in part of the art project. So we'll see you on the next clip.